And is Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius hiding a secret? There are new accusations that she could be shaking down big companies and getting private donations to push, guess what? Obamacare. An HHS spokesperson refuses to answer questions about Sebelius' soliciting funds for the group Enroll America. Susan Crabtree is a reporter for the Washington Examiner. She joins us. Susan, thanks for being with us. Why won't HHS tell you guys whether Sebelius is fundraising for Obamacare?
Well, because this started last year in May when the news first broke that she was fundraising. And so now there was a big uproar over it. Republicans in the Senate and the House started asking for investigations. Inspector General of the Health and Human Services investigation, a probe by the General Accounting Office. And basically, we haven't heard if any of that had happened. So what I did is I went back and I FOIA'd the emails that have anything to do with Enroll America that from Health and Human Services government officials. And basically, it saw very close coordination between Enroll America and Health and Human Services officials and Sebelius on fundraising. And so I asked the obvious question yet on Friday and said, are you still doing this despite last year's uproar? And the response was very vague. Did they sidestep the question, basically? And what about this whole idea of, you indicated this started in 2013. Shouldn't Sebelius' time have been better spent working on the rollout of Obamacare and monitoring the website as opposed to trying to fundraise? Doesn't that tell you that she already knew this thing wasn't going to work and they needed as much money as they could to give to someone else to promote this Obamacare law? Well, they were very concerned because Congress had defunded any attempt to promote the Obamacare rollout in the fall. So they're saying this is their plan B and that this is the way that they're going to be able to promote the law. Get an outside group. It's something that the Obama administration is very familiar with. They do that with they transform their campaign committee into an outside group that promotes the president's agenda now. So now we have an Enroll America that is founded for the sole reason of promoting the health care law and the enrollment numbers, getting them up. All right. And now you have Sebelius soliciting funds. Okay, and she is soliciting funds from whom? She is soliciting funds from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, H&R Block, Johnson & Johnson, which the Health and Human Services Department regulates, and Kaiser Permanente, an insurance provider in California. All right. Thanks so much for being with us. And so Secretary Sebelius' alleged fundraising might be unethical, but is it illegal? Georgetown constitutional law professor Nicholas Rosencrantz joins us. All right. Good evening, Professor. Let's start with the first question. Is the fundraising by the Secretary of Health and Human Services to raise money to promote a law that's, by all accounts, a disaster, is that unethical? Is that allowed?
Well, the investigation into this issue is still ongoing. There are congressional committees that are looking at this. The GAO is looking at this, and these are actually quite fact-specific questions. So, we probably shouldn't prejudge the results of those investigations as to the ethical or the legal question.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. Isn't it the case that Johnson & Johnson, it makes healthcare products, Health and Human Services regulates Johnson & Johnson? I mean, to me, it seems like a little bullying, a little intimidation. I'm your regulator. I can regulate your company, cut your bottom line, and I want you to give me money for somebody else. I mean, to me, that's worse than unethical. It's bullying. It's intimidation.
Well, you're quite right. I mean, there are two constitutional reasons to be alarmed by this dynamic. One is, Congressman Gowdy referenced the power of the purse. This is perhaps the most important way in which Congress is able to constrain the executive branch. But if the executive branch can go around the appropriations process and get its money from elsewhere to come up with its own enforcement priorities, that cuts Congress out out of the loop when the founders really thought that the power of the purse was going to be a crucial separation of powers safeguard.
But in the end, if they're raising this money, and after Congress has defunded that particular request by Sebelius, I mean, wouldn't you think that Congress would want to take some specific actions? Because she's going around Congress the way the president is going around Congress.
Well, you would, and you heard Congressman Gowdy suggest some ways that they might. But if the executive branch can really go around Congress to get its own funding for these programs, it's a really kind of an alarming extension of executive power and a subversion of the way the separation of powers is supposed to work.
And what do you think? I mean, you're a law professor. What do you think of this power grab and all of these executive orders? Do you think that, although they say that this president hasn't used as many as others, do you think that these are different?
I do. So it's
how?
Well, it's not a matter of the number of executive orders. There's nothing wrong with an executive order in itself. The problem is that some of these executive orders are flatly inconsistent with statutory text, with what the acts of Congress tell the president to do. You know, perhaps the clearest example are these suspensions of Obamacare. So the statute could not be clearer about the date when it kicks in, and the president has, on his own motion, said he's going to enforce it, you know, a year later, and now it's another year later, and it's against some people but not other people.
And you know, the Constitution is so incredibly clear that, you know, this president is supposed to faithfully execute his duties, and at the same time, it seems as though the president is just ignoring the Constitution. And even though people are complaining about it, why do you think that there hasn't been more of a public outcry, or better, can we do anything about it?
Well, those are good questions. You know, the congressman suggested some things we can do about it. Ultimately, you know, our check is elections. So our check is to be better educated about this, to monitor our elected officials, to be certain that they are adhering to their constitutional duties, and to vote accordingly. If you find your elected officials are not following the Constitution or not fulfilling their duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed.
And if the selective I would think that selective enforcement, and now we know from the targeting of, you know, conservatives by the IRS, that this is a message to big corporations that can be regulated, that, you know, we can come after you too, not just with the IRS, but HHS in terms of regulations. I mean, you're a constitutional law professor. I mean, there's a great deal that you know about the Constitution. Have you seen this kind of thing before?
Well, you're quite right. So the president's duty is to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. And so this Secretary Sebelius story is all in the shadow of the president's various decisions to enforce certain laws and not other laws, and enforce them against some people and not other people. So if the secretary says it'd be nice if you gave some money to this organization, you have to be bearing in mind that you know, he's got the hammer behind that request.
It's kind of like your jailer that you rely on for food. But Professor, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Happy with you.